Alexis Williams, AICP PP, is a senior planner with STV Incorporated, a full-service planning and engineering consulting firm. She currently serves as the Professional Development Officer, or PDO, for the Pennsylvania chapter of APA. She is the chapter's chair of the Professional Development Committee and is the chair of APA's Southeast Section Council. As PDO, Ms. Williams facilitates the development of training for professional planners, reviews events for AICP CM credits, and coordinates PA chapter AICP exam preparation activities. In her role as a senior planner at STV, Ms. Williams oversees a wide range of transit, land use, community development, transportation, infrastructure, and environmental planning projects. She has over 15 years of experience in the private and public sectors, managing planning projects for a variety of clients. She holds a BA in Environmental Studies from Gettysburg College and a master's in city planning from the University of Pennsylvania. Please take it away, Alexis.
Thank you, Laura. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome on behalf of the Pennsylvania APA chapter. I'm excited to be helping to facilitate this session today. We have some great speakers and material lined up. Just a few announcements I wanted to make on behalf of Pennsylvania. First, if you're looking for some other ways to obtain AICP CM credits, please note that our chapter holds monthly virtual Wednesday webinar series. It's the first Wednesday of every month at noon. We have a variety of topics. So there's different things if you're looking for different topics. And our next session is going to be on June 1st. So please visit our Pennsylvania chapter website if you're interested in signing up for those. My second announcement is that our Pennsylvania chapter fall conference, it's our annual conference, it's going to be fast approaching. This year it will be October 2nd through 4th at the Lancaster Marriott in downtown Lancaster. We hope that you can join us in person for this event this year. And then my last announcement, and very exciting, is that the next National Planning Conference will be coming to Pennsylvania next year. It's going to be in Philadelphia. So please stay tuned to National APA for more information on the conference. We hope that we'll see you in Philly next year for NPC 23. So at this point now, I'm going to introduce our first speaker. Today we have Scott Duncanson. He is a senior environmental planner and project manager at Gannett Fleming, based in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania. Mr. Duncanson is a certified planner with over 37 years of experience in the transportation and environmental planning fields. Scott received a BA in political science from the University of New Hampshire and a master's degree in urban affairs from Boston University. He's experienced in transportation, environmental, land use, and comprehensive planning, NEPA compliance, community impact assessment, community visioning, and public involvement activities. Scott has worked on numerous environmental planning studies for transportation projects across the Commonwealth for PennDOT, MPOs and RPOs, and transit providers. Scott's prepared environmental planning studies and NEPA documents for a variety of state departments of transportation and federal agencies nationwide. He currently serves on and is an active member of APAPA's Chapter Professional Development Committee. So take it away, Scott.
Okay, thanks, Alexis, for that kind introduction. Let me share my screen. Whoops. Okay, turn the slideshow on. Okay, here we go. Is that showing up? Sorry, I'm not sure if it's showing on my screen.
I don't see anything, Scott.
All right, hold on.
Scott, I believe it's at the end of the slideshow. You just need to, I think you should be able to start from the beginning.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be starting. I guess I can just run it this way. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, we're gonna just give a brief introduction to integrated water resources management, which is also known as the One Water approach. And what is the integrated water resources management, or One Water? It's where all aspects of water are being managed together as a single connected system. Everything from water quality to water quantity, wastewater, stormwater, economic development and their impacts to land and impacts to others is viewed in equity. Why use the integrated water resource management or one water approach? It promotes a coordinated development and management of water, land, and related resources to maximize the economic and social benefits while minimizing the impacts to the environment. Water resources are impacted by decisions related to land use and growth management. These decisions influence water demand, affect water supply, and impact water quality. While planners have not traditionally worked directly on water and wastewater systems, they are often engaged in natural resources conservation and management, floodplain management, and green infrastructure projects. Increasingly, planners are working in collaboration with water professionals to integrate water resources and management needs and challenges into local plans and regulations. The picture here shows a redevelopment project that happened in the city of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, that fixed both a stormwater issue as well as a transportation issue at this intersection. And they reduced the size of the intersection and were able to add in some green infrastructure adjacent to the Lancaster Brewing Company facility. And as I think we know as planners, nothing goes to better together than planning and beer. And I think I have on good authority, I believe an abstract was submitted for the upcoming conference, October 2nd through 4th in Lancaster for the our chapter conference. And there's an abstract submitted for a green infrastructure walking tour. And the last stop was going to be here at the Lancaster Brewing Company to view those different stormwater facilities, green infrastructure that was put in at this location. So maybe you'll have a chance if you visit the conference to go on that tour and see the green infrastructure and maybe taste the local flavor of Lancaster while you're there. And then lastly, how do we change the way we think? The one water approach really represents a paradigm shift in the management of water, both in terms of the physical systems that manage water and the institutional structures. Planners play a key role in facilitating implementation of one water efforts, which depend on interdisciplinary collaboration between water professionals, planners, engineers, landscape architects, public works professionals, and other related professionals. And that's going to lead us into our next presentations. We've got some great presentations from some planners as well as a public works professional. So I'm going to stop sharing and we are going to go into our first Mentimeter poll question. So Caroline, if you want to put that question up for folks. Okay, and the first question we asked is, what is your drinking water source? And it looks like folks who are answering, it looks like public surface water seems to be the largest to date. Just give it a few more seconds as a few more responses come in. All right, that looks good. Looks like the public surface water is still the largest vote getter by far. And that's pretty good that we didn't have too many I don't knows and only one something else. That's good that folks know where their drinking water supply comes from. And now I'll turn it over to Alexis to introduce our next speaker.
Thank you, Scott. I wonder what that something else is from that poll. All righty. I'd like to now introduce Shannon Rossman. She's going to talk about what's happening with One Water in Pennsylvania. Shannon Rossman is a graduate of Bloomsburg University with a bachelor degree in geography and environmental planning. Currently, she is director of Lycoming County Planning and Community Development Department, PCD. Lycoming County is very diverse, and as such, the PCD is involved in many programs and projects that help maintain, promote, and expand diversity. She's actively involved in hazard mitigation efforts, economic development, natural resource protection, and interagency cooperation while overseeing the staff of the PCD. She's aided and secured grants for the Lycoming County Timber Run Industrial Park. Previously, she worked for the Berks County Planning Department. During her 25 years with Berks County, she helped promote and create many opportunities for regionalization, including a joint comprehensive plans, joint zoning ordinances, multi-municipal agreements for recreation, MS4, One Water, source water protection, multiple municipal mergers, and other services in the creation of the Berks County Water and Sewer Association. She was also successful in securing grants to help with source water protection, multi-municipal planning, and recreation planning. During her career as a planner, she's been very active in teaching and creating courses for the education of individuals about municipal planning in PA. She's instructed many courses for the Center for Excellence in Local Government at Albright College and PMPI. She started her career with Union County in 1992 as an environmental planner and recycling coordinator. She loves to travel and visit historic and natural areas. Take it away, Shannon.
Okay, let me just get my screen up here. Okay, can everybody hear me? All right.
Yep.
Thank you. And to move on forward with more information about what Scott introduced us to, I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've done in Pennsylvania and Lycoming County and previously in Berks County with regard to One Water. And we're looking at it from many different aspects. We look at it, I know when APA is talking about One Water or integrated water resource management, they basically identify the 4 water components. But I think that it's very important to add in land use and economic development and preservation when you're looking at that, because it's a key thing that planners are involved in. Why should you do integrated water resource management? It really improves our planning for future land use, and it improves water quality and quantity. It can provide a lot of cost savings because initially it may be more expensive to get some of the data sets that you need. But when you look at the future of the integrated water resource management and looking at One Water as a component, there's many ways to save in development practices as you move forward by looking at everything holistically. And you'll see that as we go through the slides. It also promotes a lot of resilience because we are dealing with a lot of existing development that we need to improve upon as we go forward. As we've discussed, the surface water, groundwater, quantity, land use development and preservation, water consumption, and water quality. Sorry. We're also looking at when we're planning for the future, we're looking at things like stormwater runoff. Is there an existing issue? Okay, sorry about that. We're looking at conservation. We're looking at floodplain management. We're looking at infiltration. As Scott showed you the slide from Lancaster Brewing Company. Infiltration of water is very important in certain areas, especially if it's already been developed. We're especially looking at economic development. How can we reuse brownfields, but at the same point in time, improve the water quality in some of those areas? And even housing. If you've listened into some of the previous programs, they've talked about floodplain management and also how to manage housing in some of the areas that are inundated with flooding. So all of these items have to be thought about when you're looking at future and existing planning. In a lot of cases, people are looking at this and they're thinking, well, what comes first? Do you look at the water needs? Do you look at the water, existing water availability? Do you look at your land use projections? And you really have to kind of take them all in at the same time, because you really need to look at how sustainable is the development that you're proposing. And and look at the overall use of the land and whether or not it's going to work sustainably with your water use and needs. And the only way that you can do that is if you use a data-driven approach. And also, it is key that you have to have stakeholders involved, because if you don't have the backing of your stakeholders and they don't understand why you're doing what you're doing, you may have the best project, but you won't get it off the ground. And the only way, as I'm saying, getting your stakeholders involved, showing them what you can do with the geographic layers, that's how you can lead a project to implementation. Oops. Some of the ways that you can involve your stakeholders that we've seen a lot of results from is not as much public meetings anymore, although we have been successful doing some multi-option. We've had public meetings, we've had virtual tie-ins to those public meetings, social media, surveys. We do a lot of e-news where we're pushing out different ideas to our residents. Unfortunately, in Lycoming County, we do have a large population that does not have good broadband services. So we offer tours of different projects, little videos that can be viewed. We have open houses, and newsletters are very important, because even in this day and age, having something as a newsletter that can be printed off and given to people is still a very viable way of getting information out there. In some cases, it's moving better towards the future, but we still have some startup costs when it comes to some of the municipalities and some of the counties. I know it is hard to come up with the money to have a GIS system. It takes a lot of time and effort. It also takes know-how. When I graduated from college, we had no GIS capabilities in our planning department. Our assessment office had those capabilities. And then when I moved to Berks County, we did not have GIS at all. It was in our mapping department and it was not available to us. As we've moved forward, we rely heavily upon our GIS. And I have actually gone from color pencils to learn how to at least use layers. And it's very helpful in understanding exactly what those layers can bring us when we're looking at existing and future development, whether it's for preservation or economic development. It's a huge benefit. One of the nice things too is, even if you do have a lack of staff, it is something that can be picked up with fairly easily by staff, as long as they're able to learn computer programs. But some of the issues is, if we don't move towards integrated water resource management, we're losing out on a lot of knowledge. And we need to do it at multiple levels. The county can really help a lot of the municipalities, and we have, I know, in both Union, Berks, and Lycoming County. And we rely heavily upon regional and state and federal data layer sets. Most of the times, only the more populated localities have this GIS capability, but we do provide a lot of information back to our municipalities. Anytime we go out and need to get information, we may contact a municipality and say, hey, can we have a copy of your water service area? We don't share out the line information, but we'll share out the service area. And if they don't have a GIS copy of that, many of our municipalities don't, or public entities don't, we'll go out and we'll create a GIS layer from their paper maps. We'll do some field verification, and then we'll provide them with a electronic version through GIS of their system, so that they can actually use that when they're doing their field work. One of the first examples I'd like to show you, this is just, as you can see from the lower left-hand side, this is just outside the Chesapeake Bay area. This is the Schuylkill River watershed. As shown by the Schuylkill Action Network, they have a really great example of a one water approach. They set up back in the early 2000s, they set up a whole work group and steering committee that looks at all the various aspects of water management in the entire Schuylkill River watershed. And I mean, the main reason was Philadelphia really wanted cleaner water for their residents, but at the same point in time, everybody in the watershed benefited from this. The cleanup of man and mine drainage, the cleanup of stormwater quality, pathogens, working with the sewer treatment plants, the agricultural workshops, working with farmers to identify where better management practices could be done. Looking at watershed land collaborative, looking at the land uses, where are they appropriate? What can we do to improve upon the water quality coming down the Schuylkill River? And most important, they use the data team and they use education and outreach to get those points across. And it's still very active. I have put the schuylkillwaters.org link on the slide. They have a great example of coming from grassroots to a full-blown, very active network of professionals, public, and government. So it's very, very good example of how to do one water. I'm also on the County Planning Directors Association of Pennsylvania, and we had looked at integrated water resources and the one water approach. And one of the things that we looked at is trying to make sure that people understood that if you would create a planner's checklist, identify what data that you have available already, identify what data you don't have available, and if it's something that you can acquire through free, whether it's from the state, whether it's from PASDA, which is a resource at the Penn State University, or whether you can actually hire interns. And we've seen that they can, those that are coming out of colleges and universities today have a much better grasp of doing GIS work. And we're able to get a lot of information for a very inexpensive cost. We also are able to use them to verify the accuracy of some of the information, because some of the older information may need to be updated or may need to be verified, just some field verification. But you can do a lot with very little nowadays. Some of the layers that we've been involved in was water use data. How much does certain types of land uses require? The water quality, land use data, especially what is where and what are we proposing for where? Hydrography, political subdivisions, roads, topography. Many of these things, you're already aware of, but the more data you have, the better off your decisions can be. I just have listed on the screen some of the different items, existing groundwater pollution. That's something that we're looking at in Lycoming County right now. We have an EPA grant to do brownfield revitalization. So we are actually identifying where we are hoping to clean up brownfield areas. And if we can get better groundwater and reduce pollution from that, that's going to be an added bonus. So, just knowing some of those items can be very helpful. We also have a lot of flooding issues in our areas. So stormwater issues and things like that are very important to know. But it's also important to know where your sanitary sewer systems are, where your surface areas are, all of your flood data, your landscape factors, where are your preserved farms, where are your preserved conservation easements. So a lot of that is very important to have, especially when you're trying to layer things. And this is an example of if you know exactly where your stream data is, where your swales are, your stormwater pipes, you can start identifying what should be connected to where in the future. And also where you may have some pollution issues. In Lycoming County, we are looking at, we just finished our CAP plan, our Chesapeake Bay Area plan for water pollution prevention and reduction of sediment and nitrates and things. And so we look at that, and we look at how can we improve upon the water quality in our area, which will then improve upon the water quality going down to the Chesapeake Bay. One of the key areas that we're looking at is Muncie Borough. As you can see from the picture, they have a lot of problems with flooding. But one of the issues that you run into when you're trying to deal with floodplain management is that if you just buy out all the homes, then you have a borough that is left with a stormwater and water system with very few people to spread the costs across. You have issues with tax base then. So what we're trying to do is look at Muncie Borough in a more holistic fashion. We're looking at the floodplain management with buyouts, utility elevations, and stormwater, but we're also looking at, can we do stream restoration that will help improve the water as it's going through the borough? Can we do brownfield cleanups? Because there are a large number of properties within the borough that are outside the floodplain. However, they are not currently in use because of pollution problems. How can we do downtown revitalization? The majority of the borough's downtown is not in the major floodplain area. So how can we make improvements to downtown? How can we help residents who have structures that are outside the main floodplain area improve the exterior of their homes? How can we improve the park areas? Because they have a number of areas now where buyouts have occurred and they have open land. So what can we use those lands for? And can we use it to make amenities for the borough residents and residences? And also, how can we do emergency management and safety protocol in a more effective manner? Because as you can see, Interstate 180 runs through the outside of the borough, but it is in the floodplain area, and there are major access issues, and one of our hospitals is located on a high spot. So there's a lot of emergency management issues we need to look at. But we need to look at more than just flooding. We need to look at everything, all the issues affecting the borough. Oops. Okay, this takes just a minute to load. When I was working for Berks County, one of the data layer sets that came in very handy when we're looking at future land use and existing land use was the different ecological and historic resources and recreation resources for the county. So the main one is not loading. Oh, there it goes. So this was used in most of our comprehensive planning efforts, in addition to our park and recreation and greenway plan. We looked at areas where would future growth and development be best, and what areas should we stay away from? And as you can see, any area that has no coloring was the better areas for growth and development. But as you looked at, you see many of the areas that are already existing developed were areas such as the city of Reading where it had already occurred. Unfortunately, that happens, but we were able to look at how can we mitigate those factors. And this just looked at, we had run an analysis to see where greenways should be kept up so that when we're trying to promote growth and development in certain areas, how are we going to affect I call them bugs and bunnies, or how are we going to affect the water quality, or potentially how are we going to affect the agricultural community. We also looked at trail networks because this goes hand in hand with the park and rec overlays. And it also goes hand in hand when you're trying to look at if we're going to put a greenway through an existing development, should we have a trail or should it just be a greenway for bugs and bunnies? Some of the other things that We looked at where are the major gas and oil and major transmission lines for power and supply. And this is something we look at very heavily in Lycoming County too now, especially with the solar and also the Marcellus Shale. We have a number of power plants in the area that use that, and it's very important to know where they are at, especially for emergency management purposes. One of the other things that we did in Berks County was we created for economic development. We looked at if in conjunction with our environmental analysis, and then also in conjunction with where is water available, where is sewer available, where is our transportation and our major transportation routes. And then also where are environmental hazards not present. We didn't look at zoning initially because sometimes zoning didn't have enough of this information when they began preparing the data. So what we wanted to do was look at everything that you should take into consideration when you want to place economic development. And then we looked at the zoning afterwards to see if the zoning was what it should be. This is an area just off of Interstate 78. I sometimes call it the warehouse corridor. If you're familiar with Allentown, Reading, Harrisburg, and then up 81 to Scranton, there is a significant concentration in warehouses. And it's because you can reach a huge amount of the population in the United States within a few hours. So warehouses are very prevalent in that area. But in Berks County, they wanted to make sure that they were in the appropriate spot and did not have the impacts on the environment and the other land uses as has happened in some of the areas where it occurred in the previous 10 to 15 years. So we looked at the interchanges. This is areas just off an interchange on Interstate 78. And if you can see, this is now what it looks like today. It's actually this was a few years ago in 2016. Now there is more at this location also. It's fully built out now. But this was all within a mile of the interchange. So that almost everything surrounding this area is agricultural preservation. Some of the other ways that we looked at the data layers on how to identify where to put things in the future is we looked at all the existing land use, the different layers. We took them, identified what they were, and then we added in we added in where is the existing zoning. We added in where is the existing sewer and water. And then finally, for our final layer, we looked at where is environmental factors, where's the floodplain, where are agricultural easements, where are environmental conservation easements, where are steep slopes. And from there, we created a map that would then show where would it be the best to place future development and economic development. And it really helped us to identify the areas we need to stay away from or preserve. And that was the result from that map. So if you see, we identified exactly where the MDR is, medium density residential and highway commercial and conservation area. We then were able to make sure that the area with steep slopes with environmental factors is not an area that's going to be developed in the future. And I'm going to turn it back to the next person.
All right, great, great, Shannon. Thanks for that. Thanks for that One Water overview, a little deeper dive than what I provided. I guess, Caroline, maybe real quick, if you've already had the second poll, if you just want to put that up on the screen, and then maybe as that is up on the screen, Alexis, do you want to move forward and introduce our next speaker?
Sure, let's do that. Okay. So now we're going to turn things over to Pam Schellenberger, and she's going to talk about what's being done in York County. So Pam Schellenberger, in her 37 years with York County Planning Commission, she has held various positions, Currently, she's chief of the Long Range Planning Division and manages a staff of 6 planners. Her primary responsibilities include development and implementation of the county's comprehensive plan and countywide action plan for clean waters, as well as administration of the York County Regional Chesapeake Bay Pollutant Reduction Plan for the York County Stormwater Consortium. Additionally, Pam serves as vice chair of the Manor Township, Lancaster County Planning Commission, and secretary treasurer of APAPA Central Section. She serves on the Chesapeake Bay Program Local Leadership Work Group, the Lancaster Conservancy Land Protection Committee, and numerous other committees. She has a BS degree in Urban and Regional Planning from Indiana University of Pennsylvania. So is the poll finished here? Just about. Looks like most people are working on it, but it takes some time. Very good. Okay, so now let's turn things over to Pam.
Get my presentation up here. Can you see that okay and hear me okay?
If you're good, Pam.
Yes. Good afternoon. Today I'm going to present an overview of York County's Integrated Water Resources Plan, which I'm going to refer to as IWRP throughout my presentation. York County is located in south central Pennsylvania. It's bordered by the state of Maryland to the south and the Susquehanna River to the east. The river provides 55% of the fresh water flowing to the Chesapeake Bay. York County has just over 450,000 residents and is comprised of 72 municipalities, a mix of townships and boroughs, and the city of York, which is the county seat. 47 of our municipalities are designated as municipal separate storm source systems, or MS4s, and agriculture is the predominant land use in the county. Development is concentrated, as you can see in the small inset map, in the greater York area and along 2 major transportation corridors. US Route 30, which traverses the county from east to west, and Interstate 83, which traverses the county from north to south. Approximately 52% of the county's total stream miles are impaired. You've already heard a lot about integrated water resources planning and management, but I just wanted to emphasize that it's a holistic approach that emphasizes the need to manage water resources in a way that ensures long-term sustainable use for future generations and requires working together with partners at all levels to be successful. In Pennsylvania, the Stormwater Management Act requires counties to have an adopted and Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, which I'm going to refer to as DEP in my presentation, approved stormwater management plan. Additionally, the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code requires counties to have a comprehensive plan that includes a plan for a reliable supply of water. Also of note is that the state water plan promotes integrated water resources planning and management. Prior to 2009, we were developing stormwater management plans on a watershed basis with funding from DEP, and a water resources plan was a component of the county comprehensive plan. However, when DEP announced that funding for stormwater management plans would no longer be available, we approached DEP with the IWRP concept. We also asked for approval to base our plan on the county's 4 primary watersheds that are included in the state water plan, rather than the 9 stormwater management designated watersheds. Additionally, we sought approval to develop a planning document in-house without the need for new computer modeling or other engineering calculations. We received DEP support, provided that we work closely with the department to assure that all requirements of the Stormwater Management Act would be met. The York County IWRP was adopted in 2011 as a component of our county comprehensive plan. It replaced the prior water resources plan and was subsequently approved by DEP as a countywide stormwater management plan. Development of the IWRP was a team effort engaging multiple stakeholders. The County Planning Commission was involved, the York County Conservation District, DEP, municipalities, engineering firms, and a variety of water resource stakeholders. We also had a plan advisory committee. Much of the data sets that Shannon mentioned were very important to the development of our plan. The plan includes 3 parts: an introduction that sets the stage, a flowchart tool, and the plan itself, including 7 appendices. The introduction includes the purpose statement, which is to develop a plan that will be used by all municipalities and a broad range of stakeholders to make informed decisions relating to matters that affect water resources. It stresses that water sustains life, thus effective management of the county's water resources necessitates an integrated rather than a fragmented approach. The introduction also notes how existing water-related laws, plans, studies described in an appendix will be used to inform the plan development. Further, it identifies the goals of the plan and objectives to achieve them. The second part of the plan is a flowchart tool. This tool is the county's attempt to tie everything related to water resources together in an understandable and user-friendly manner. It consists of a flowchart, instructions for using the flowchart, and the bases, which give more detail and definition to each process step. Users will be led through a logical process of questions and suggestions, which will ensure the user considers not only what is related to water resource management in York County, but also how the user's project and or actions will affect those water resources. More information on the flowchart will be provided later in my presentation. The third part is the actual plan. It begins with an overview of the 4 primary watersheds, including population, land use, a variety of environmental characteristics and impacts on water resources. Much of that was the GIS data referred to by Shannon. An overview of existing water resources and water management facilities is presented, including a map of locations and service areas. Water resource issues are likewise discussed. The plan also includes a water budget and future land use and population projections with potential water resources impacts identified. The watershed analysis tool presented in the state water plan was used to develop the water budget. Part 3 culminates with an action plan and recommendations for implementation. I might skip them. The action plan, since most authority in Pennsylvania rests with either the state or municipalities, the action plan relates predominantly to the role York County can play in the areas of education, outreach, technical assistance, and engaging the local, state, and federal officials to implement the plan and promote integrated water resources management. The county's water resource coordinator, a position funded by DEP as part of the Pennsylvania Chesapeake Bay WIP 3 program, leads the effort. Appendices include a model stormwater management ordinance, model water supply well testing ordinance, and an abundance of data related to each of the 4 primary watersheds that was used to not only develop the plan, but also will be of value in plan implementation. The inclusion of a model stormwater management ordinance is a Pennsylvania Stormwater Management Act requirement. The standards and criteria in the ordinance are consistent with the IWRP and the Stormwater Management Act. Now, back to the flowchart tool. When thinking about how everything related to water resources interacts and ties together, the vision becomes very complex. The flowchart is York County's attempt to tie everything related to water together. It addresses all water resources and how they are used. It integrates existing programs, studies, assessments, and resources. It directs users on how to find additional information on regulations and policies, and incorporates information on the use and management of each water resource. The goal is to streamline the design and regulatory process to a simple to use decision-making tool. This slide is too small to read and somewhat intimidating, but it shows the entire process that ties all things related to water together. For success, the process needs the participation of federal, regional, such as the Susquehanna River Basin Commission, the state and county entities, as well as municipalities, because they are all involved in water resources management and decision-making. The diamond shapes that you see on the slide represent steps where the user must make a decision in order to determine which flowchart path to take. Rectangles are action steps or tasks to be completed in the flowchart process before moving to the next step. In some cases, the path directs the user to another section or leg in order to avoid redundancy in the flowchart. On the next couple slides, I'll walk you through the beginning steps. For some reason, some of my slides seem to be missing. I apologize that a couple of my slides are missing, but the flowchart begins with an evaluation. You'll see at the top of the screen up here, the flowchart begins with an evaluation of whether the proposed project is consistent with the Susquehanna River Basin Commission Comprehensive Plan, State Water Plan, County Comprehensive Plan, and Municipal Comprehensive Plan. Whenever the response is no, the user is asked to consider project modifications to achieve consistency. The flow chart is then divided into 5 legs, which you see across the top of the screen. The project types include conservation, preservation, infrastructure, agriculture, land improvement, and planning. The planning projects leg is further divided into comprehensive planning, environmental planning, and infrastructure planning sublegs. Based on the type of project proposed, the user will select the appropriate leg or subleg, if applicable, to guide them through the flowchart. For example, a stream bank fencing project would use the agricultural project leg. In the agricultural leg, the flowchart first asks if the project is on a farm with an approved and implemented conservation plan. The BASIS educates the user about conservation plans and provides contact information for the York County Conservation District should the user have questions or want more explanation. If the user answers no to the first question, they're directed to contact the Conservation District to have a plan developed or to obtain assistance in implementing an existing plan. The BASIS inform the user that all farms are required by law to have a conservation plan. As the user proceeds through the flowchart, they're asked about how their project relates to a full array of water resources, plans, reports, regulations, and policies, which includes many of the things that you see on the screen. Guidance and recommendations are provided along the way. Overall goal is to ensure that the user considers not only what is related to water resource management in the county, but also how their project and their actions will affect those resources. Key to implementation has been developing partnerships with an array of entities at all levels, such as those you see on the screen. Although there have been some setbacks, they are outweighed by the successes. The York County IWRP was the first in the state to meet both planning and stormwater management requirements. Approval by DEP subsequently required all municipalities to adopt a stormwater management ordinance consistent with the plan within 6 months. DEP was impressed with the flowchart tool and provided funding to develop an interactive web-based version of the flowchart tool for replication by other counties. However, there is still no requirement for anyone to use it. Although creating a countywide stormwater authority, which would have been the first in Pennsylvania also, did not come to fruition, it did result in the installation of real-time state-of-the-art water quality monitors that capture 80–90% of the county's water flow to the Susquehanna River. This is through a partnership with the USGS. We will soon know the true quality of the county's waters and be better informed of whether our water quality best management practices are working, as well as where new practices are needed. The Regional Chesapeake Bay Pollutant Reduction Plan evolved from the IWRP and meets an MS4 permit requirement for 27 municipalities. However, 46 municipalities are partners in an intergovernmental cooperation agreement to implement that plan. On the screen here, you see is the web-based version of the flow chart. When you go to www.paiwrp.com, this is the home screen that you'll see. If you want to use the flow chart and work a project through it, you're required to submit your email address and provide a password that will enable you to go back to the project if you weren't able to complete the flowchart process, or even if you have completed, to go back and review that project in the future. The middle screen there says start a new project. So there are currently 3 counties that have created a flowchart tool, and they are York County, Westmoreland County, and Erie County. With regard to takeaways for other communities, I want to note the importance of working closely with your regulatory entities. Don't hesitate to present out-of-the-box ideas, but be prepared to provide justifications regarding how beneficial those changes would be. Likewise, it's important to get any regulatory concessions in writing, because quite frequently staff changes and prior staff may not remember those concessions that you were given when you started to develop your project. Additionally, as Shannon mentioned, it's good to take advantage of existing resources. It's not necessary to recreate the wheel. There is much GIS data that can be obtained from other entities that would be of value to your projects. York County's IWRP serves as a model for other counties to meet planning and stormwater management requirements in a single document. Our IWRP saved much time and expense for the county. And through the web-based application, the flowchart can be easily adapted for use by other counties. As part of DEP's funding, the County Planning Commission was required to provide technical assistance to other counties. So one of the things they can do is if they want to develop an integrated water resources flow chart, they start with York County's flow chart and then modify it to meet their needs. Thank you. And next you'll be hearing from a representative from Richmond, Virginia about integrated water resources planning and management.
All right, thanks, Pam. Thanks for that great presentation. Especially love those takeaways that you provided at the end for folks who are looking into using that model. That's great that it's been replicated by others, and other counties are using it. And again, thanks for that. Thanks for that last slide, especially on the takeaways for others. Let's go to Caroline. If you can put the next Mentimeter up. Poll up on the screen, I think. Yeah, there you go. Pam is there. You go. And Alexis, why don't you introduce our next speaker?
Sure. So our final speaker today is Pat Bradley. He's going to talk about what's being done in Richmond, Virginia. Pat Bradley is Deputy Director of the Collection Systems and Regulatory Affairs Division for the City of Richmond, Virginia, Department of Public Utilities. Pat's division is responsible for operation and maintenance of the city's sanitary, combined in storm sewer systems, the city floodwall system, the water resources program, pre-treatment program, and the water and wastewater laboratories. Pat has over 35 years of experience managing water quality related programs. He previously worked for RES, Limno Tech, US EPA, and the Department of the Navy. Pat has a BS in biology from the State University College at Plattsburgh, New York, and an MS in biology from the University of Texas at Arlington. All right, so are you a CSO? Looks like most people are not. So thank you for that. And now let's turn to Pat.
All right. All right, well, thank you for the opportunity to give you some information about what we're doing in Richmond, Virginia. And to get started, we're pretty much down at the bottom of the bay drainage. We discharge into the James River, which is the last river basin system before the bay empties out into the ocean. So we go from the James River into the Hampton Roads and then out into the ocean. Going from big watershed to smaller watershed, the city is actually made up of about 20 watersheds, so 20 creek systems. And if you follow the river going from west to east, we drop about 110 feet in elevation. So we sit right on the fall line. Just as the river bends and heads south are the falls of the James. Department of Public Utilities, we are actually responsible for all of the water services. We take care of the river. Our drinking water comes from the river. We drink water plant that goes into the distribution system, into houses, industries, commercial, into our sewer system, which is made up of both sanitary, separate and combined sewers, as well as a separate stormwater system in part of the city. And the wastewater treatment plant returns the water back to the river. So we're looking at all aspects of water within the Department of Public Utilities. A lot of what I'm going to talk about, I'll focus more on wastewater, stormwater, a little bit on drinking water, but it'll be mostly the stormwater and wastewater to give you an idea of how the city is laid out. About a third of the drainage area is made up of combined sewers. So in that area, both stormwater and sanitary wastewater travel in a single pipe system. And this was put in place a very, very long time ago, early 1800s, mid 1800s. There are about 770 or 75 other cities throughout the country that have combined sewer systems. And at the time it was put in, it was a great idea. Put everything in one pipe, get it out of the city. As time went on, it's become more of a problem. And I'll talk about some of the things we're doing to try and deal with that. Even though we, Department of Public Utilities, are responsible for all the different aspects and of the water throughout the system, throughout the entire city, we work a lot with other groups, recognizing that all of these other groups have a very large interest in different aspects of the water resources throughout the city. And we have developed this over many years, but it was mostly to look at the idea that we're the Department of Public Utilities, we have certain responsibilities, certain interests. We know there's certain needs within the city as far as drinking water, wastewater, stormwater management, flooding, things like that. And all these other groups have different. So what we were looking for is how do we make best use of, there's a lot of overlapping interests and a lot of interest in projects that overlap. To make the best use of all those different interests, we decided to form a group which we called RVA H2O. RVA is the brand for the city of Richmond, Richmond, RVA, Virginia, RVA. To get folks to start thinking more holistically about water, we just tagged H2O, H2O onto it. So people would start making that connection of, the city, everyone in the city needs to take a much bigger interest in the water resources and the importance of the water resources. To do this, to put this group together and go forward and put a plan together, we looked at some different guidance from EPA. One was the integrated planning guidance, the other was watershed management guidance. And what we decided to do is actually improve on both of those and come up with our own framework. The biggest difference, and we weren't sure why EPA put it together the way they did, in both the watershed management framework and in the integrated planning framework, stakeholder involvement was a single step. We felt it was more important to have stakeholder involvement throughout the entire process of developing the plan. from the very beginning all the way through putting out the plan. And in fact, what we found was when we finished, stakeholders wanted to keep going. So we still have this whole stakeholder process. The plan was put together over a few years, and we issued it in 2017. The plan is made up of agreed upon goals by the entire group, a set of strategies and objectives and metrics to measure, and then towards the end, an adaptive management process, which is kind of where we are right now. We're in the adaptive management mode because we've been running the plan for about 5 years, and we're now looking at all the things that have worked and what changes we want to make, and we'll continue to do that with the stakeholder involvement. The plan has led to a lot of collaborative projects. We've done projects with Chesapeake Bay Foundation Alliance for the Bay, James River Association, with Plan RBA, with University of Richmond, VCU. We work heavily with Department of Environmental Quality, all these different groups to get all of these projects done. And these are all based on that overlapping interests, overlapping goals of what people want to accomplish. Another thing that came out of the plan was, as I mentioned, goals, and part of the goals was looking at objectives, and part of that was setting priorities. And one of the priorities that was identified was we need to prioritize getting the river cleaner, and one of the issues that arose was bacteria. And if you look real closely, you'll see kind of towards the middle of this table from site number 9, or I guess site number 10 through 16 is the city of Richmond, the James River as it goes through the city. And you can see bacteria, it's actually improving. There's less and less, and more and more over time, the river is actually meeting its water quality standards or criteria for bacteria, but not all of the time, which is where we want to get to. One of the obvious reasons it is not meeting is we still have combined sewers in the city of Richmond. As a point, that's about a third of the drainage. The reason there's still that large section left, that is the oldest, most urbanized part of the city. So going forward, we're trying to figure out, how do we finish what we've been working on for the last 50 years and get the combined sewers addressed once and for all. As I mentioned, they were a great idea in the mid 1800s, early 1900s, because it solved two problems. It solved flooding and it solved sanitation in the city by getting everything into a very large pipe and getting it out into the river and out of the city very quickly. But in order for the river to be used for recreation and other purposes, we need to continue to lessen. We're at about 90% capture. The last 10% though is a very difficult problem. Historically, the way we've been dealing with the combined sewers was collect data, run a lot of models, and then make decisions on which pipes to take out of service and so on. But we found that what we've been dealing with is a kind of a static model. The rainfall data was mostly from the airport, which isn't actually in the city. We're also noticing, which I think everybody is, with climate change, these storms are changing quite a bit. So, to use a quote from Einstein, we couldn't keep doing the same things we were. We need to come up with a better solution. So if you remember the watershed map for the city, now this is a kind of an electronic depiction of it. The blue line is the James River as it goes west to east, and then it drops to north to south. All of the different locations on this map are different areas where we put in sensors and flow meters and rain gauges to gather a lot more data on the system so we can make better decisions going forward as we plan how to deal with reducing the number of overflows and the volume of overflow. And if you watch as this loads, hopefully, what you'll see is this is showing a rain event that took place, and you can see it started in the north and northwest darker the screen gets, the more blue. That's the intensity of the rain. You can start seeing the data that's coming in about which pipes are filling, how fast they're filling. If you look down towards the lower right-hand corner, you can see how fast the wastewater plant is also filling up. All of these nodes, you can click on them and get individual data. As they turn from green to red, that's a specific CSO overflow point. So this is, as we go forward, we're getting more and more and more data that's allowing us to make much better decisions and carry out the plans that we're putting in place to deal with the combined sewer system. The other thing we're doing, historically, we had always notified folks about overflows so they wouldn't go in the river, but that was based on, again, the model out at the airport, and it didn't tell them where the overflow took place. Now we've put a public facing map that they can go to and click on these icons, and they can get real-time data on, what overflows have taken place when, within the last 48 hours. So to wrap up, lessons learned. The biggest lesson we learned, there are a lot of people with a very big interest in the river. We are not the only ones. And so collaboration and working with all these folks has actually made our job a lot easier, and we've got a lot more projects done. The beginning of the plan, the setting of the plan, the implementing of the plan was all built around common goals. People may have different ways of getting stuff done, but at least agree on what the goals are. We spend a lot of time talking with our stakeholders and providing them a lot of information. One example is, we now have a map that they can go to so they know the quality of the river. When we were putting the plan together, I think one of the things that made it successful, made the RVA H2O program successful, is we used an outside facilitator, actually from the University of Virginia, to run all the meetings. We did these meetings over many, many years. Took a while for everyone to kind of gel and start trusting each other, but that was just a matter of time. And then a lot of problems to address, a lot of things to overcome, but we all had the same goals. We all want to get to the same endpoint, so staying positive was also very important. If you're interested in more information on RVA H2O, it's a separate website, which is rvah2o.org. Has the plan, has all the background data, which include extensive watershed characterization data, projects that are being done collaboratively, projects that are being done just by utilities, and so on. And that is all I have. And that is not me in that kayak. I'm a little too, how should I say, yeah, I wouldn't do that. So that's all I got. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Pat. Appreciate it. Love those great slides. I'm ready to go out on the river. You got me excited to get out there. I got my flotation device on. This is May is the National Boater Safety Month, so very appropriate. We got Memorial Day coming up, so make sure you're safe when you're out there on the river and in the bay. And also, I think this week is National Public Works Week. So Pat and all your folks that you work with, congratulations and happy Public Works Week. Jillian, I think we have, do we have another Mentimeter poll?
I do not have the,
Caroline.
Oh, Caroline, there we go. Okay, and this was, are you under any Clean Water Act consent orders? And looks like we've got a few yeses, a few nos, and a few who aren't quite sure. And while we're running this Mentimeter poll, if you have questions, please make sure you put those into the Q&A box so that we can get to your questions and parcel those out to the various speakers. Okay, and it looks like we got maybe a majority of no's on that one. And I'm not sure if we had one more question that we were gonna run with, but I guess maybe to kick the Q&A off, and with with Pat as our last speaker. Pat, how do you see your plan moving forward and evolving in the future?
I think I mentioned a lot of the focus currently has been on stormwater, combined sewers, and the wastewater plant. We're working on tying more of the drinking water in. It's a little tricky in that it's two separate statutes, Clean Water Act versus Safe Drinking Water Act. But one of the things we're looking at is we've had a lot of success with the sensor flow meter data, and there's a lot of more sensor technology that we can actually start. We've got a ton of data on the river, which we do that through Virginia Commonwealth University, but we can also put sensor data there, sensor data in the water plant distribution system. It's already in the sewer system, add in the wastewater plant, and actually get a full one water loop where we're getting constant data that's connecting the dots, because it is pretty much a loop system that we're looking at.
All right, great, thanks, Pat. I think I see there's one question in the Q&A box, and I think I'm gonna throw this one over to Shannon. I think it came in while Shannon was talking, and if anybody else wants to elaborate, they can. The question is, what are some of the data points you look at in GIS or outside of GIS with the One Water approach?
Some of the key ones that the data sets that we've looked at is having the floodplains, the floodways, water supply. Where are the water supplies, although that's not given out to the public, but where is our water supply? Where are our sewer treatment plants and the service areas of those? We also, it's great to know what is currently there, all the existing land development items that are currently there. It's really good to know what type of environmental resources are out there. Where do you have steep slopes? Where do you have Marcellus shale? Where do you have well pads? Any information that you can gather. It doesn't have to be really down in the weeds, but anything that you can start gathering and using any of your partners to help you build up your resources will help benefit any future planning.
Okay, thanks, Shannon. Okay, the next question we have, I think, is back to Pat. The question is, what is your audience for your data, and has it driven decision making? I guess looking at your data tool that you put up there, you know, who's actually looking at that and monitoring that?
Looking at it, the kayakers and the rafters spend a lot of time looking at it, and that's part of the reason we put it up there, was to really help people that want to recreate on the river so they have the best data possible. Bigger picture, Chesapeake Bay Foundation, James River Association Alliance for the Bay, some other environmental groups, the state DEQ, Virginia DEA, you know, Department of Health also look at all of our data, because we have the flow data, but we also have a lot of watershed data that we've collected over many, many, many years. So.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks for that information. I can definitely see how it's useful for the folks who want to use the river and be out there kayaking or recreating. Good information to know if they're going out near the time of a storm event. Okay, next question I believe is for Pam. Can you tell us a little bit more about your the tool that you use and who maintains it? If that tool is up on the website, but it was developed by York County, how does that tool work and who maintains that?
The County Planning Commission, we can go into the tool and make changes to it for York County. The other counties that are set up in there would then, you know, have the ability to modify their individual flow chart tools as they go along. we do have, there is a paper version of the entire flow chart in our integrated water resources plan, but to amend it in our plan would require a formal amendment to our county comprehensive plan. So having that web-based version enables us to make changes to the tool at any time without having to go through that formal amendment process.
Okay, thanks, Pam. Looks like I have another question for Pat. Pat, what challenges are you facing currently in achieving your One Water goals?
Well, I kind of mentioned the one that just the balancing between the Clean Water Act and Safe Drinking Water Act is kind of tricky. The bigger challenge right now is addressing our remaining combined sewer overflows is huge. We're doing real well on nitrogen, phosphorus, suspended solids, all that to meet our bay requirements. In fact, we're well ahead of that. But the bacteria, because the combined sewer system is just a very old problem. As I mentioned, we've reduced down probably 90%. The last 10% is going to take a lot. I didn't show it on the map, but we've got 4 creek systems that all come together and merge into what's called Chaco Creek. And as it comes to the downtown area, it goes underground. And this was done on purpose, 100+ years ago. And then they tied all of the sewers into that creek. Well, that creek then got connected as a pipe to the wastewater plant when it was built in the 1940s. So we treat 4 creeks every day. And so the flow issue there and separating would be quite the effort. So we're looking at having to come up with a very large storage option and then treat all of that flow. On the plus side, currently we treat over 100 million gallons per day during rain events of stormwater, which wouldn't get treated in a normal MS4, but it is a very large problem.
All right, great. Thanks, Pat. And then I think we're going to try to use one last question, and I'm going to throw it to everyone in the panel, maybe for some last words and to try to answer this last question. Especially, what advice would you give municipalities, especially maybe smaller municipalities who may not have all the resources that a larger city would have? What type of advice would you give them in reaching to use that One Water approach or integrated water resources management? Shannon, why don't we start with you?
Okay, I would say reach out to your next level of government or any of your partners. I think as Pam has indicated and Patrick has indicated, they do have resources and probably work with municipalities that have less resources, and will be happy to work with them on expanding their data capabilities and or helping with their mapping if there is a way that it will also help them. So and that's what we do with our municipalities. We have many that need help, and we're willing to share in our data sets.
All right, great. Pam, how about you?
Yeah, I'll just add to that. In York County, all our GIS data is available for downloading on our website for free. And we also work with our local municipalities that have a GIS system to get that set up and get our data integrated into their system. So we do work very closely with all 72 municipalities on these efforts.
Great. Pat, how about you?
Yeah, so we work with called Plan RVA, which is our local district, planning district, which gives us access to all the communities around us to exchange information. But the other I would recommend is what's been successful for us is working with your local and regional environmental groups, watershed groups, because they have a very big interest, and then make use of any of the local universities or colleges in the area, because it's a great way to collect data. you train people to move into your line of work at the same time you're getting data that you need.
All right, great. I really appreciate from all of our panelists the great work and great insights that you've provided, and hopefully some good takeaways for those people who are watching. Alexis, I don't know if you want to say a few words to wrap it up for the chapter, and then throw it over to Laura to close out.
Sure, just a reminder again to folks from the 3 things I mentioned when we kicked it off. If you're looking for more AICP credits, our chapter does a monthly virtual Wednesday webinar series. So go check out our website for that. Our annual conference will be in Lancaster this fall in October 2nd through 4th. So we hope to see you in Lancaster for our chapter conference. And then, like I said, very exciting is that national MPC is coming to Philly next year in 2023. So we hope that we see you in Philly. And just in general, thanks to all the presenters, thanks to everybody, thanks to this group. Pennsylvania is very excited to be part of this Mid-Atlantic collaborative series. So we were happy to host this session today. So now to you, Laura.
Thanks so much. That was great. I really enjoyed the presentations. Thank you to Pennsylvania APA for running the show today, and to the incredibly informative presentations. As you know, we have resources as usual. We have a lot, and these will be posted up on the Virginia APA website, where we have the Mid-Atlantic Planning Collaboration. So you'll see those there. Just to quickly go through them, you'll see we have York County, we have some other examples up there. We have all of the plan, the RVA H2O resources there. And I just want to say thank you. This is me on the lower 4 mile run right next to the wastewater treatment plant. I thought that was fitting for Boater Safety Week. A reminder again about the AICP credits, the numbers there. And of course, floodplain managers, please email me and I'll provide you with a certificate. The next webinar, our capstone webinar at the end of the series, is June 16th, and it's going to be on smart growth and water resources. So very much looking forward to that. Delaware is going to be helping to co-host that one, the Delaware APA. So that's going to be great. And I hope that everybody will join us back here next month. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much. Thanks to everybody who was involved in the planning, which goes far beyond just the faces that you see here. And I guess I'll see you next month.
Thank you, everyone.